we have res.json, and this returns JSON, right? And returning an entire object back, right? So if you're going through this array of objects, then you're returning a single object back. So now you have this being returned. However, if this is false, if it doesn't find it, then what it does is it just returns this false parameter back as JSON. So this goes back to our view.html. Now, if we get back an object, meaning that if there's data, or if we get back false, then it's going to hit here, right? Because we're getting back information, whether or not it's false or whether or not it's the object itself. However, this line over here, what is it checking for? Line 66. If the data is basically exists or is truthy, right? So if the data being returned was false, then would this hit based on my tone of voice? No, right? Yeah, so then it would automatically go to this else, right? So if we went to the server.js and we said, okay, return JSON false, what happens is this data actually functions because this callback function actually gets information back. However, the conditional statements won't execute. The conditional statements will get hit, but this conditional statement won't execute. This conditional statement will, because this is false if false gets back, so it'll go over here. However, if it's true, then we're going to go through here. Actually, Twitch is pretty good too, huh? At the same time, I can play League of Legends or something.
Oh, you can actually.
Actually, let me try that right now. But I have to get going soon, so I'll try that out next time. Yeah, Zoom because yeah, the company paid for it, and Zoom is also limited in terms of how much memory I can hold, even though we're paying for it. So it's kind of stupid. All right. So we have the server.js. And then this final part, again, if no information was being submitted, so if you hit this, so if I just went to API, then I get back everything. And that's what this does. And saying, like, if you don't pass it anything, then you just do this. So you just get all the characters back as an array of objects. Is that not making sense to anybody, or is it making sense? Make it a sense? Cool? All right. So let's move on to the final parts. So now that we have the ability to receive information, why don't we figure out how to post information? So what we're going to do is we want to submit information to our application. So we already set something up. We had said add new character. But we go to add, and it doesn't give us anything. So we have this file that was made for add. So why don't we serve it back? Okay, so why don't we go to our route. So all we need to do that is to create this route that says add. And it'll just send this file back called add.html. And we have this add.html. So now if I go to add, hey, I get this back. But now it has this form, right? It has name, row, age, all this other crap. And I can add to the force. However, if I do that, it's probably not going to work yet, right? And that's because we haven't set up on the server side to work with it. So why don't we take a look at what we need to do in order to make it work. So let's see, we have our final part over here. And what this does is this is on our client side, and it's making a post request, and it's saying, okay, we are going to create an object based on the different values from this form. And based on the different values in this form, we are then going to post that information to API/new, to a different route. And then we're going to submit that information, right? Now, after we submit that information, we have a promise being returned with all the information, and then on our front page, we're going to do a console.log and an alert that says adding character. A better way to write this would have been something like character was added, because this executes after the character was added, but this works just fine on its own. So we're trying to send an object based on data that was inputted from our form to our server and then get information back, similar to a GET request, but this time we're sending information in object form. Now, before we send information through a URL parameter, and Node is excellent at handling that. It's like, hey, you send me as many URL things as you want, and I don't give a fuck. I'll just handle everything you give me. But with Express and Node, it's like, okay, wait. If you're trying to send me different kinds of information, I'm going to need some help here. So this is where something called body parser comes in. So body parser doesn't check your body for different things, but what it does is it checks your request object, and it checks your request being made, and the request information is checked for what information is being passed to it, and it can render that information and packages up very nicely. So for instance, if you wanted to pass in JSON, it can understand and interpret and then build an object using JSON. If you pass it in your encoded URL, so like if you were to encode some URL and send it, it can do that. With text, it understands text, and it understands how to construct that and parse through it. JSON, like different types, it can understand that and it can parse through it. So this is great, right? You're able to do a whole bunch of different things with it. And notice that we have to use app.use. So this is an external JavaScript module. So the first thing we do is we install it and we save it. And then next what we do is we have to start using it. So this is middleware. So app.use, what happens is before the information gets hit to the different routes, it goes through the middleware first, right? So it's like, all right, this layer, this layer, this layer, this layer. And you're essentially processing a bunch of different data before it hits the different routes. And that makes sense, right? You want to clean up the data before it hits your different routes. So that's what we're doing over here. We're able to interpret, so we're able to parse through and interpret and structure our data before it hits our routes. Our routes are over here. Our middleware is up here. So this parses, interprets, cleans up our data, and understands that information. So now, if we were to start passing in JSON, it understands it and is able to pass it in the correct format. So from here, and I really have to hurry this up because I got to go somewhere. So if we have app.post, now we have this API new. So it listens for this API new. So if I make this post call to API new, and I send it this new character object, what I'm able to do is create this new character based on the information being passed to the body object, which is coming from the request. So if I pass in an object or whatever, it gets stored inside this body because of body parser. All right, from there, we're going to actually create a new character. So we're saying that, okay, so we got this request.body, and if we actually did a console.log new character, so why don't we make a request? So I'll go refresh, I'll put in like, I don't know, German mouse person. Role, very German. Age, 34 sounds very German. And then 50 is a German number. And adding character. And if we look here, before we made the change, the object that was passed in was name German mouse person, role, very German, age 34, force points 50. So it actually received that object, and we were able to display it, right? Because all we did was save it into a variable. Then what we did was we said, okay, make sure the route name, take out any spaces and make it lowercase. So before, our route looked like German mouse person. Sorry, our route didn't exist. We actually created it. So before, we didn't have a route name. We just took our name and converted it into a route name. So from there, we console logged that out. So now we don't need those. And then what we did is we just added that character to our characters array. So we have this characters array, and it's going to show up in our memory, not inside of our file, because we're not writing to a file, we're writing to memory. And then we respond back with that new character. All right, so if we respond back with that new character that we added to it, then what's going to happen is we're going to console log that data. And this console log doesn't exist on our server side. This console.log is on our what? Client side, right? So you have two different consoles happening, but this is on the client side. So it's going to show up on our client side. So if I were to look here, I should see German mouse person object. A lot of different ways to persist data. Remember, you can use the FS module, or better yet, there's other Express modules built in that layer on top of that. But you could use the FS on its own to write to a file. You could also still use local storage, session storage, or if you wanted to persist even better, then you'd be using a database. All right. Well, I gotta head out because I actually have somewhat of a life now. So I will catch you guys later. All right. No worries. See you, everyone. No, go away. Why does he keep saying wait? No, bye. No, 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 no. I can literally see what's behind me because I'm looking like right there. I gotta go. Go away. Go away, everyone. How do I get out of here? I want to leave.